What's up, guys? So we got a question from Carissa, who's a white belt. She's been training for about 5 months and she's really flexible. And the other day after class, she was stretching out, loosening up her muscles, as you guys all should be when you're getting done training. One of her teammates came up to her and said, "Oh wow, look how flexible you are. You should be using some of these more advanced techniques, some of these more advanced positions that utilize and almost require this flexibility, like rubber guard and maybe inverting, things like this." So her question to me today is, should I be focusing only on the basics, or should I play around with these positions like rubber guard and, inverting, things like that, things that are going to require that flexibility as a prerequisite to be effective? So Carissa, thank you for the question. Today I want you to, getting into it, I want you to think about a home. Think about a home that you thought was beautiful, a home that you were in awe of, a home that as soon as you walked in, you're like, God, I wish I could have this place, okay? Got something in your head? When you went into that home, did you go into it thinking, oh man, look at this foundation, right? Were you standing on the outside of the home going, look at that beautiful foundation, and then you went down to the basement or something, oh God, look at this foundation, it's so beautiful. Of course not, right? Nobody goes into a home, unless maybe you've had issues with a foundation before, nobody goes into a home like looking at a foundation and going, oh, this is what I was looking for, right? People go into a home, they're like, oh, the hardwood floors, the open floor plan, oh, the double vanity and the master suite, look at the tile in the kitchen. Whatever they like aesthetically, that's the stuff that they're gonna gravitate towards, that's the stuff they're gonna focus on, right? And if you've ever been unfortunate enough to deal with a foundation issue, you understand how expensive it is and how big of a pain in the butt it is and the absolute necessity that it has to be fixed, right? You have to fix it. You have to have a foundation, right? You can't have a crumbling foundation on a beautiful home because the beautiful home will fall apart. You have to have that rock solid foundation set. And jiu-jitsu is very similar, right? The foundational elements don't garner the same attention that a spinning upside down armbar back take gets, right? It just doesn't, right? That represents a high level of skill and it grabs our attention. Nobody goes to a match and says, oh man, look at oh my God, those were the most beautiful frames he set up. Did you just see how he was putting up his defensive frames? Oh, it's awesome. Or man, look at the way he was shrimping out of something. Nobody looks at that stuff, right? It's the stuff that's so basic that you just expect it to be there, right? And so it doesn't grab the same attention. But I can tell you, I've seen situations where we've had blue belts come into our gym from other gyms, reputable gyms, but they came in, and when they came in, they were missing like little simple basic things that you think that blue belt should have, right? You should have learned as a white belt. These really basic core techniques, core fundamentals of jiu-jitsu. And they would have they would be able to invert, they'd be able to play leg lasso, they'd be able to play lapel guards and all this crazy stuff. But then as soon as someone got them in like a headlock or put them in case of Tommy, they were just fish out of water. I'm like, how do you know how to do a leg lasso, but you don't know how to get out of a headlock, right? And you don't want that to happen, because then what'll end up happening is it's like building that home, that big, beautiful home, if you don't focus on the basics, and then having a crumbling foundation, right? You don't want that to happen, because then, like with these blue belts that started training with us, we would have to go back and we'd have to look at what was going on and fix those little basic things. And that's not something you want to have to do afterwards. You want to set that core foundation of your jiu-jitsu, right? Really set it, make it rock solid. And then afterwards, you play on the fringes. You play with all those crazy positions that look so cool and they represent high levels of skill. That's when you play with that stuff. But you set your foundation first, okay? And so what I would say to you, Carissa, is with your jiu-jitsu, set that rock solid foundation first. Really put your attention into the basics of jiu-jitsu first. Doesn't mean you can't play from time to time with other stuff, that's fine. But you really want to put most of your attention into those basics in the beginning to set that foundation, so this way you can play with the other stuff and know that it's not going to all fall apart as soon as someone puts you in a position, right? Or like really tests you. And the one thing I would say though, is that even as you get better, even as you progress years down the road, still come back and turn back to the basics that you've already learned, right? And just see what's there, because I found that really basic jiu-jitsu it represents like a really good book. I mean, I think this is really any good fundamentally sound technique in jiu-jitsu, but some of these basics, I've known them for so long, right? It's like having a book that I've been reading for and there are some books that I've read like multiple times, for like the last 15 years. Like I've been training jiu-jitsu since 2003, been a black belt since 2011. I'll still go back and I'll limit myself for about a month where I will only use the techniques that I show to the white belts, right? Because I want to use the stuff that I'm showing them to kind of just keep it fresh from time to time. And then what I also found is that, like a really good book that I continually revisit, I see new stuff, right? Like if I read a good book and I read it and I'm like, oh man, that was good. And then like 2 years later, I read it again and I'm like, oh my God, I never noticed this part about the book. The ink was already printed on the paper, but I'm in a different place now, so I see something different. And it's like that with techniques in jiu-jitsu, right? Like when you come back to a technique you've already learned years ago, but you don't really use all the time, which is a lot of white belt stuff for me, you know? I'll come back and I'll look at it and I'll say, man, let me limit myself to just this basic scissor sweep, right? Or something like that. And I'll limit myself to it. Even when I'm rolling against higher level guys, I'm gonna play that basic stuff. And what's neat is I'll find new techniques, little details, right? There was treasure to be found there. I just had to dig it up a little bit. And so I'll find these new details to the technique that, one, make it more effective, but even give me new details that will help me show my white belts a little bit better, right? And so it makes a position a little bit new. And so with your jiu-jitsu, even though it may not be super complicated, there's a lot of deep complexity to those basics, right? So you don't always have to make it complicated to make it complex, right? Because you can go back and look at those really basic techniques and find new details even as you get better. So that would be my answer for you, Carissa. Focus on the basics. I think you already knew that, right? You were in the message you sent. Focus on the basics first. Play around with whatever you want to from time to time, but focus on those basics in the beginning. Once you get that rock solid foundation, then like when you're a blue belt probably, then you play on the buffet line, you sample all the techniques and find out what's gonna work for you. And then even as you get better, every now and then come back, turn your gaze backwards and say, man, let me play around with these old techniques a little bit and see if I can find something new. So, Carissa, thank you so much for the question. And guys, I appreciate you. And thank you guys for all your questions. And I will talk to you guys next time.